Um, sometimes when the the answer is like very simple, but you just miss the point. Before we start continuing the share, I just wanted to go over it again, just for sake of clarity and just to have it on record, etc. That I didn't get it last time. What I didn't get was it said that Rachav's grandchildren were Kohanim. And I had a problem. How could they be Kohanim? Rachav couldn't marry a Kohen, which is true. But in order for Rachav's grandchildren to be Kohanim, she didn't have to marry a Kohen. She could have married Yeshua, as the Gemara says. And then if they had a daughter and that daughter married a Kohen, and that would be her grandchildren would be Kohanim. She didn't have to marry a Kohen in order for her grandchildren to be a Kohen. So my assumption was wrong, and that's why I came to that mistake. I was bothered. How could her grandchildren be Kohanim if she was not allowed to marry a Kohen? And the answer is she didn't marry a Kohen. Her grandchildren are Kohanim because the daughter married later on a Kohen, and that's fine. So there's no problem in the first place. Okay, that's clear, right? That's just from last week. Okay, so where are we up to? We're up to now on let's see, we're up to let's see here. So we're up to over here on 15a, okay? Tezvav Amud Aleph. All right, so we're going to continue to explain the Megillah, but before we do that, we have one piece of Gemara over here telling us, Amar Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman comes up with an idea. He says that Malachi is a Mordechai. You have Malachi was one of the prophets. So he says that that this Malachi, it was mentioned before when he talked about the various different navis. So he mentions over there, also Malachi he mentions over there. In the previous page. But anyways, he says that this Malachi is Mordechai. It's the same as Mordechai. It's just a change of name. But that's the Mordechai that we know over here. So why did we call him Malachi if he's Mordechai? So he says, Mishnah lemelech. He was second to the king. So the word Malachi is like Melech, right? It has the word Melech in it. He was a king. I guess maybe Reb Nachman is bothered by what's the name Malachi. Malachi seems like a king. Why was he named king? So he says this is really Mordechai. And we call him Malachi because he became a Mishnah Lamelech. So it would fit with the special name that he has of Malachi. That's what Nachman's suggestion. But the Gemara actually rejects that interpretation. And the Gemara says we find a listing of names, and they list Mordechai, and they list Malachi. So Malachi couldn't be Mordechai because they list him separately. So the Gemara says like this, Meisivi, I'll ask you a question. This is brought down that Baruch ben Neriah, Baruch the son of Neriah, he was a prophet. And remember the Gemara said before, if it says the father's name, that means a prophet, the son of a prophet. So you have Baruch ben Neriah, Baruch the son of Neriah, Usriya ben Masaya, and Sriya the son of Masaya. Then it says Vidaniel, and then it says Mordechai Balshan. Mordechai Balshan, that's Mordechai Tzaddik, it's called Mordechai Balshan. Then it says Chagi, Zechariah, Umalachi. So over here you see he mentions to you when he's counting these prophets, he's saying Mordechai and also Malachi. How could Malachi be Mordechai? It's not possible. What does it say in the Brisa? It says, Kulam nisnabu. These were all prophesying. Bishnas shtaim lider yovesh. In the second year of the second Der Yovesh. There was the first Der Yovesh and there was the second Der Yovesh. All these prophets, Baruch, Shriya, Daniel, Mordechai, Chagi, Zechariah, Malachi, they were all prophesying during the second year of Der Yovesh. So that proves quite clearly that Mordechai and Malachi is not the same person. The Gemara actually says to Yufta, that's a challenging question. And therefore we can't go by what Rachman says. It says to Yufta, he has been challenged because this is very clear evidence that Malachi and Mordechai are two separate people. He tried to explain the name Malachi he got was because of he was second to the king, and he wanted to say that's the same as Mordechai, but here we see it's not. Let's do the Rashi. What does it mean? B'shnas time the Yovesh. First Rashi says Achrin, because there was a Der Yovesh from before. This was the later Der Yovesh. So what does it mean? Nisnabu libnei hagoyim. They all prophesied to the people of the exile, sheyachzuru lebeis hamikdash, that they are going to go back to the Beis Hamikdash. What happened over here was because originally they were given permission to go back. Shenisbatlo hamalocha zeshmoine esrei shana. The work of the Yidden, he has given them originally permission. The first Der Yovesh given them permission to go back and build the Beis Hamikdash. But then, for 18 years, the work has ceased. Why? There were people that Al Yidei Shemronim, the Shemronim, they were a sect, and they slandered the Jewish people that they want to rebel. So they stopped. They said they want to build their Beis Hamikdash, so they stopped it. Those were the Shemronim. I'm sorry, I said the Yovesh, I mean Mei Kodesh. In the days of Kodesh, Kodesh allowed them, not the Yovesh, Kodesh allowed them to build the Beis Hamikdash. But then the Shemronim, they stopped them. So in the second year of the Yovesh, this Der Yovesh was Achashverosh and Esther's son. He allowed them to go back and to start building the Beis Hamikdash again. So in any event, this says here that all these prophets, they prophesied in the second year of the Yovesh. Okay. We have another opinion over here. Tanya, we learned in a Braisa, Omer Rabbi Yishu ben Korcho, says Rabbi Yishu ben Korcho, Malachi ze Ezra. Now, again, why do they want to place Malachi with Ezra? I mean, and why with Mordechai? We have to figure out. We'll see in the Gemara. The Gemara is going to tell us what is the connection between Malachi and Ezra. Because one of the things that Ezra, as the Gemara will say in a minute, was fighting against, it was the Jewish men married non-Jewish women. And when they were returning to Eretz Yisrael, he told them to leave their non-Jewish women behind. And we see that Malachi also had a similar message for the Jewish people. So therefore, Rabbi Yishu ben Korcho, the Gemara is going to say soon, he says Malachi is the same as Ezra. Again, I don't know exactly why everybody's trying to do something with this Malachi. I think the name Malachi sounds a little bit like Ezra was sort of a king. He was the head of the exile. He brought them back. So I guess the name Malachi would fit him. But the Chachamim, they disagree. They say Malachi Shmoi, his name was Malachi. So you know what? It's not anybody else. It's just his name was Malachi. It's a little bit sounds like a king. Okay, that was his name. But Omar Rab Nachman, now Rab Nachman was rejected before. Look at that. Rab Nachman says Malachi is a Mordechai. This was Rab Nachman, you see? And he's trying his luck again. So here he's saying, Omar Rab Nachman, he's getting involved. He said Malachi is a Ezra, and he said Malachi Shmoi. So he says, no, I side with Rabbi Shimon Korcha. Logically, it's like the one that says that Malachi is Ezra. Why? The Ksiv Benevius Malachi. Because during the prophecy of Malachi, it's written. Over there, Malachi base it says, Bogdo Yehuda. Yehuda has betrayed. And this is his rebuking the Jewish people. It says, V'toy Evo Neseso B'Yisrael. An abomination was done in Israel. Ubi Yerushalayim, and in Jerusalem. Ki Chilel Yehuda Kadosh Hashem Asher Ohev. For Yehuda has desecrated that which is holy to Hashem, that he loves, Uboal Bas Kel Necher. And he had relationship with the daughter of another god, which means with non-Jewish women. So this is what Malachi is writing about the Jewish people, rebuking them and saying to them that they had a Bas Kel Necher. And Rashi says, Bogdo Yehuda is Sefer Dekra, Uboal Bas Kel Necher. And the end of the pasuk is, apparently in Rashi's version, yeah, go ahead.
Why do we even need to think that Malachi was anyone other than Malachi?
Good. So I'm thinking, I suggested before, I'm thinking because Malachi sounds like almost a name like a king. So one of the things, why would somebody name him Malachi? So the Gemara is trying to feel that Mordechai was sort of a king because he was Mishnah Lamelech. Ezra was the head of the exile. He was sort of a king. And the Chachamim disagree. They say, no. That's what was his name. And that's it. So
in French, Roy means king, but I can barely make a decision.
Okay. Or maybe they have some tradition. I don't know why the Gemara says that. But the bottom line is, in this Rashi, it seems like Uboal Bas Kel Necher wasn't maybe in the version of Rav in the Gemara, because Rashi says the end of the pasuk Uboal Bas Kel Necher. By us, it's in the Gemara. So basically, this was the Uman Afrish Nochim Nachriyos, who is the one that separated the non-Jewish woman. It was Ezra. So since Malachi complained about it and Ezra did it, the Ksiv, because we find in the pasuk in Ezra Perikut, Vayan Shchenya ben Yechiel mibnei Elam. Shchenya, the son of Yechiel from the sons of Elam. Vayomer lo Ezra, and he says to Ezra, Anachnu ma'alnu belikenu, we violated against our God, and we settled non-Jewish women. See what the pasuk is. Ma'amei ha'aretz, from the nations of the Ba'ato yesh mikveh Yisrael al zois. Now there is a hope for the Yidden for that. This is Ezra Perikut pasuk base. So this was Ezra that was involved. Okay. Now the Gemara says, Tana Rabbanan and Abraisa, there were 4 exceptionally beautiful women. Arbo Noshim Yafyafiyas Hayu Ba'olam. In the world, there existed 4 beautiful, not just Yafas, Yafyafiyas must be exceptionally beautiful in the world. Sarah, well, Sarah, we know it says in the pasuk, Ki Isha Yifas Maraot, that he said that she was a beautiful woman. Rachav, and Abigail, and Esther. I don't know where exactly that comes over there in the Psukim, but these were the four most beautiful women. The Gemara says, but there is an opinion, Lamanda Omar, there's an opinion that says that Esther Yirak Rukas Hoysa, she was actually greenish, that she wasn't so pretty. It says, so how come Achashverosh desired her? We learned the Gemara earlier, she had a string of kindness on her face, but she wasn't beautiful, so you can't call her beautiful. So the one who says that she was greenish, so Mapik Esther U'Ma'il Vashti, he takes out from the number Esther and puts in her place Vashti. The Vashti was one of the four beautiful women, if according to that opinion. Okay. What says another thing? The Gemara says that these were such desirable women. The Gemara says that even Talmud Rabbanon, Rochov Bishmo Zinso, just this Rochov was so beautiful, and she was so that just mentioning her name, she causes a person to follow after promiscuity, becomes nus. Bishmo Zinso, Rashi says, Hamaskir Shmo, one who mentions her name, Nigrar Achatayvas Nus, is dragged after the desire for Znus. So that's mentioning her name. Wait, the Gemara is going to ask in a minute. Yael, that was the other one of the four women. Or no, that was another one. We don't even have Yael in the four women. So at least Rachel was mentioned one of the four women. Yael is Bekoila. I guess because she wasn't so beautiful, maybe she had a beautiful voice. So that's why by her, it says with her voice. She used her voice, she would cause to be nigra to advertise nus. Abigail, B'schirosa, by remembering her. I guess the difference is over there, it's the name. Over there is by thinking about her. That's why it says but she was one of the four women. And Michal Bashol. So that's Shaul's daughter, married to David. B'riyosah. I guess just seeing her. So that's the voice. Abigail is by remembering her. And Michal Bashol is when seeing her. Now one could ask, what is this so important to us? To know all this? I mean, what is the message? But we'll leave that for another time to try to figure out the drush from all this. Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rabbi Yitzchak, a person just says Rachav. Immediately, Nikri Roya Keri sees a Keri. It's a bodily experience just by mentioning her name. So again, we have Reb Nachman says, Ana amina Rachav. I say Rachav. It doesn't bother me. Nothing happens to me. Amalei. So Rabbi Yitzchak said to him, Kiko amina b'yoda bakira. I'm talking about one who knows her and he recognizes her. If he says Rachav, then he sees a Keren. All right, let's go back to the explanation of the Megillah. Zog the Gemara, the pasuk says, "Mordechai Yoda as kol asher naso." So Mordechai knew everything that's going on. He heard about the decree that was given to Shushan to kill all the Jewish people. So he goes out in the streets and he screams out bitterly. He screams. What did he scream about? What did he say? What was he screaming? Mayoma, what did he say? When he yelled out loudly and a bitter scream, what is it that he was saying? What was Mordechai saying? Rav Omarav says, so he was screaming. Omar Gova Homon Nachashverish. Haman is even bigger than Achashverosh. In other words, he is more brazen. He spoke even worse than Achashverosh. Kova Haman Achashverosh. Shamaloi libe ledaber. His heart allowed him, brazen, to speak. Mashallah ola lev Achashverosh. That did not even enter the heart of Achashverosh. I guess the fact that he wanted to kill all the Jews and of Achashverosh, the whole king of the kingdom. But here, Rashi says, why not to do, but to speak? I mean, just to ask from Achashverosh to do. Shmuel Omar. Shmuel says, Govar Malka Ilo mi Malka Tator. See, we have the Loshen Govar. Rashi has the Loshen Gova, like before, Gova Homan. Gova. But over here, by us, the word is Govar. He says, Govar Malka Ilo mi Malka Tator. The supreme king is stronger than the lower king. So what is that so bad? What does that mean? Rashi says this is swept around. What he really was saying, that the king below is stronger than the king above. He was screaming that Achashverosh, the king below, is greater than the king above. He uses the opposite, the flip, because he doesn't want to express these words that the king below is greater than the king above. He doesn't even want to say it in his mouth. So he uses the language, Gover Malki, Lo Malki Tato, was crying out, why is there? Or he was saying that the higher king, Hashem, cannot manage against Achashverosh, basically. Gover Malki Lo, this is a description to the opposite. Malki Lo means Malki Tato, to use a clean language. I mean, I guess if he just said Gover Malka Tato, we wouldn't know what he's talking about. So he had to switch them both. So the Malka Ilo is understood as Malka Tato. He's basically saying that the kingdom of Achashverosh is stronger than the Malka Tato, than the Malka, which is Hashem. So once Esther Malka heard that he was out in the street screaming and put on this ashes and the sack of ashes, it says, "Vatischalchal hamalkom ma'od." The Queen Esther, became very shattered, shook up. But the word tischalchal is like hollow, chol. That means, Rashi says there was something in the inside that took place in her inside. It is in the inside. So maivat tischalchal. And Rashi says nismas mischalal gufa, that the hollow of her body was sort of shattered. And the Gemara brings two interpretations. Omar Rav Shapir Sanida, either that tremble or that shattering caused her to have her menstrual period. Rabbi Omar that she all of a sudden needed to relieve herself. That's why it's connected to this chalchal. Again, why is that so important for us to know? We'll leave that for another time. But this is the way the Gemara teaches it. Vatikra Esther lahasoch. So one of her people that the King Achashverosh put to her disposal was this hasoch. So she calls to hasoch to go to Mordechai to find out what's going on. Amarav says, Arav, hasoch ze Daniel. We learned Daniel, Mishael, and Azariah, they were officers by the previous king, by the kings before. So this hasoch became Esther's servant. So he says hasoch ze Daniel. V'lama nikro shmoi hasoch. Why do we call him hasoch? Because it comes almost like chotach. Shechatchu migdulosi. They cut him away from his greatness. In other words, he used to be, now he's just a helper to Achashverosh. And he used to be a big shot. Shechatchu migdulosi zoktrashi when? B'mei Achashverosh. During the days of Achashverosh, they cut him off from his greatness. Shari bal shetzar hishlitoi tlosu b'malchusei. Bal shetzar made him dominant, the third. He was the third in the level of the government. So there's one that was called Daryovash Hamodai versus the other Daryovash. He also had him on a position. Shnamar v'olo minhoin sarchayo klaso. So from them he put up officers to the third. Daniel Chadmina. Daniel was one of those. So he was in charge over there also. Became Kodesh, and also by Kodesh. Shinamar, by Kodesh it says Daniel Hatzlach b'malchus Daryovash u'b'malchus Kodesh Parso. That he was successful in the kingdom of Daryovash and also in the Kodesh, the Persian. So, once when Achashverosh became the king, they cut him off from his greatness, and that is why it's hasoch. Shmuel says there was another reason why they called him hasoch. Shekol divrei malchus nechtochim al piv. For all the words of the government were decided through him. So, I mean, that's a level of actually of greatness, that he had a greatness. It doesn't seem like they are disagreeing that this is Daniel, but the question is why they call him hasoch. Either because he carried out all matters went through him, or because they cut him away according to the other interpretation. Now, what did Esther ask Hasoch to find out? Lodas mazev al mazeh, mazev al mazeh. Funny language over here. What is this all about? Lodas, to find out, she said to him, what is this all about? So, the word mazeh and mazeh can also be understood like mizeh. It says with regards to the luchas that they were written from the both sides, mizeh u mizeh. So she's trying to find out that the Jews violate the commandments of the luchas. Rabbi Yitzchak, so Rabbi Yitzchak, what she sent to Mordechai to ask him, Shemo Avru Yisrael al Chamisha Chumshi Torah. Perhaps the Jews violated the 5 books of the Torah. How is it hinted? Mazeh al mazeh. In the Torah it's written, Mizeh u'mizeh hem kisuvim, that they're written from both sides. So she's saying Mizeh u'mizeh, not specifically about the 10 Commandments, but on the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. So what happens? The pasuk says, who did she send? She sent Hasoch. But it doesn't say that Hasach said it to Mordechai. It says, Vayagidu leMordechai es divrei Esther. They told Mordechai what Esther says. It doesn't say that Hasoch told Mordechai what Esther said. Vilu ihu, but he, Hasoch, lo yosel legabe. He didn't go to Mordechai. Ilu ihu Daniel lo yosel lahashiv shlichusei. He did not go to bring back no. This is actually later on. I have to fix this. This is already the second time. So what happened over here? First, she said to him, what's going on? And then it says that he didn't go back. Daniel didn't go back to return his mission. What does it mean? I'm trying to figure out, what does it mean to return his shlichus? What was his? She sent him to find out what's going on. Or she sent him to find out that they violate the Torah. That's what she said. Okay. Let's go, let's see for a second in the pasuk. I'm trying to find the pasuk over here. Well, we need a Megilah over here. Let's find over here 1 second. Yeah, we need. No. So here the pasuk says, "Megilah Mordechai is different Esther." So she said that she can't come. So this is later. They told to Mordechai what Esther said. So how come he didn't? What did Esther say? Esther said that she can't go to the king because the king didn't call her. So Hasoch himself didn't go back to tell Mordechai that Esther can't go to the king. He asked her to go and pray to the king. And what did Esther say to Mordechai? She says, I can't go to the king because the king hasn't called me for 30 days. But the pasuk doesn't say that Hasoch told it back to Mordechai. So he didn't go back and return the shlichus back because Esther sent him back to tell Mordechai that she can't go. So from here we learn mikan she'ein meshivin ala klola, that you don't go back on the curse. In other words, if you don't have something good to say, she was basically saying, I can't help you. I can't go to the king because I'm not wanted by the king. Esther was prevented from coming to the king. The king didn't allow it. So he didn't want to go back and tell Mordechai that this is the situation, that Esther cannot go to the king. That's why Asach did not respond to his mission. Esther told it to him. That's why it says, they told Mordechai the words of Esther, but he himself didn't come back and say it. So Esther sent her thing that she can't go back through others. That's why it's Vayagidu LaMordechai, not Hasach himself. And then she says, go ahead. Gather all the Jewish people. And then she says, I'll go to the king against the rule. What does it mean against the rule? Simply, it means against the rule because nobody can go to the king unless he calls you, right? In this case, I'm going to go against the rule. But she meant something different, the Gemara says. She'll go against the rule, meaning against the rule of the Torah. Because up to this point, Esther was forced to go to the king. So she didn't violate the rules. She didn't violate the religion. But at this point, that she is willingly going to the king, so that means that she's no more forced to it. So that's against the rules. So she says, this was not according to the religion, to the rules. She was saying up till now, she was forced to it. It was against the will. Up to this point, she was intimate against her will. But from here on, I'm going willingly. I'm going my own. And then she says further, Kasher avaditi avaditi. And I'm lost. What means lost? She might get killed. Like avaditi. But then she says, I'll be lost. But, or, I don't mean she meant she got killed over here. It means she's going to get lost because she's violating the religion. Because she's willingly going to the king. But she says, at that point, I'll be also lost from you. Remember, we learned before that Mordechai was married to Esther. But the halacha is that once she willingly has an affair, then she's not allowed to live with her husband anymore. I mean, this is also the halacha because she had an intimacy with a goy, not a Jew. But we'll leave the discussion. It's all discussed. But Shem Shabbatati min beis Abo, just as I'm going to be lost from my father's home. What does she mean over here from my father's home? I think what it means, I'll be violating the religion. She doesn't mean Bisabo, they'll kill me because she's killed, so she's not gonna be living with him either. But she means I'm gonna be lost from my house, my father's home. You know, I'm violating the Torah. I'll be lost from you too. I will lose from you because I'm prohibited to you. For as long as she was forced, if she's a wife of an Israelite versus a wife of a Kohen, or a wife from Israel that was forced, is she still permitted to live with her husband? But if she does it willingly, so then she's prohibited to her husband. So she says, now that I'm going willingly, then I'm going to be prohibited. So Vayaber Mordechai. So Mordechai basically made a declaration for everybody to fast, because she said the plan was that she's going to go to visit the king, even though she wasn't called. Okay? But the word Vayavir seems almost like an Avera. Vayavir Mordechai. Mordechai violated. Literally, it means he passed out an announcement. He announced that there's going to be 3 days of fasting. But Vayavir literally means an Avera. So Omar Rav, so Rav says, Shehevir Yevrish Shal Pesach B'Taimus, that he passed the first day of Pesach fasting. They fasted on the first day of Pesach. Usually on Yom Tov you're not allowed to fast, but over them they fasted. So that's the Avera. Yom Tov Risha Pesach. Why are we saying that? So he says like this. Sharabi Yud Gimel B'Nisan Nichtevo Igros. Says in the Megilah, the letters were written on the 13th day of Nisan. V'niter Hadas B'Shushan. And immediately that day, on the 13th of Nisan, it was written and the law passed in Shushan. And the Yudalit, V'chamisha Osor, V'shisha Osor, the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, 3 days, Yisanu, they fasted. Ub'shisha Osor, Nitla Homon Ba'erev. And on the 16th day, Haman was hung towards the evening. In any event, I mean, I'm not sure why that's important to this Rashi over here to tell us when he was hung. We'll look at this further. Okay, but that's the way he translates the word Shehavir Yoim. I'm just trying to think in the order of the Megilah. Over here, it's, let's see for a second. I'm just looking for the Megilah. So here, so although he says Bona Bala AIDS, all right, we'll see exactly I'm trying to figure out the fit into the schedule over there. Ushmul Omar, Shmuel gives another reason why it says Vayavar Mordechai, the Over Arkuma, the Maya, that he passed over a stream of water in order to gather all the people. The Over Arkuma, the Maya, Lesef HaYehudim Shebe'ever Anor, to gather the Yidden that were on the other side of the river. He wanted to get everybody into the fasting. So Vayaver means passed over the river. All right. This already did what the Gemara quoted before. So it says Vahi Bayom Hashlishi. So it was on the 3rd days. Batil Bash Esther Malchus. Esther dresses up. It says Malchus. You should say, would seem, Big Day Malchus. She dressed up with garments of kingdom. The Gemara Big Day Malchus in Megilah should have said she dressed up with clothing of Malchus. Amar Rabbi Wolosow, Amar Rabbi Chanina, says Rabbi Chanina, that actually Melamed shelovshta ruach hakodesh. She dressed up malchus, meaning she was dressed up with divine, with a vision of the divine. That's what she dressed up. Where do we see this? From the last Lashon garment, because we find Ksivacha Batilbash. Over here it says she dressed up. Uksiv Hosam. And we find another pasuk in Divrei Yomim. It says V'ruach Lovshas Amosai, that a spirit dressed up Amosai. Over there it means Ruach HaKodesh, or it means Ruach HaKodesh as well. The Gemara says further, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Chanina. Says Rabbi Lezer, name of Rabbi Chanina. La'olam al tihi birchas hedjit kala beinecha. Never take a blessing of an ordinary person lightly. It shouldn't be lightly. Because the two great people of the generation were blessed by Shnei Hedyotis. Two ordinary people blessed them, and it was fulfilled by them. David and Daniel got blessed by ordinary people. So this, you see, this is only, what does this have to do with the Gemara? Because we had a statement before, Omar Rabbi Lazar, Omar Rabbi Chanina. This is also a statement of Omar Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Chanina. That's why the Gemara brings this down. It doesn't have any connection in the contents of what we learned before. He just says, never take a simple blessing from a simple person lightly, because two great people in the generation were blessed by two ordinary people, and it was actually fulfilled by them. Be'elain, who were the two great people in the generation? It was David and Daniel. So, what do we see that we're blessed? We say, by David, the Brachi Arvenu. David was blessed by Arvenu. The Ksiv says, Vayomer Arvenu lamelech gomer. Arvenu says to the king, the pasuk there says, Al David, Yikach v'yal adin hamelech hatov be'enov, rei haboker lo'el v'amerigi v'chaboker lo'etzim. So he told him that he should bring everything in. Eventually, the blessing that he gave him, that he can take everything, that's where they built the Beis Hamikdash on the area of Arvena. So apparently that was a fulfilled blessing, that they will bring all these korbanos. And Daniel, we find the Barche Daryavish. Okay, Daryavish he calls an ordinary person, but Daryavish was a king. But he says Daryavish blessed him. Iksiv, because the verse says in Daniel, Perik Vav, it says, Elekoch the ad plachle b'tedira, the God that you always serve him, who yishazvinoch. He should help you from the lion. He threw him in. You know the story. He threw him into the lion's den, and he says, "May Hashem protect you from the lion." So you see that his bracha came through. No, over there he says, can he save you, Rabbi Wolosow? Can Hashem save you? He said, can he? Well, that wasn't a blessing. So maybe this is another pasuk. In this pasuk, it actually doesn't say, because over here it says, this is not the exact same pasuk. Maybe that was in the beginning of the pasuk. Let's see, Daniel. Let's see. So here. You get to see the pasuk? Can you see? This is all in Aramaic. Where? So this is the pasuk. I have Abba b'dirayich l'shem Rabbi Wolosow. Malka Mali Malka Lo Mechayev. So was governor Rabbi Wolosow. So Bnei Kavod Dekan Mezach Tzedakah. V'Akad Mochabolo Chabolo. And Malka Shekadam Rabbi Wolosow Gadoliel. And the Haman Ben Lo. Sigurai Dochad Gadol Gavar Yosef and Shem Lematul. Is this there? But in the Malka Dochalam Lishnaya. And Mekad Mesham Dochalam. The Wolosow Tenal Teves. Mishim Adon. And Yad Rabbi Yosef. Malchus Kodesh. The Mahatzlav Malchus. Apparently, there was a bracha there at the end. Do you see what I'm showing you here? Because there was a bracha there at the end. All right. Anyways, Allah with the dira we yishazvinach. In the passage that I quoted over there, it says differently. So I also got to take a look exactly. Okay, let's just finish up with one more statement. He says, just like by the blessing, the same thing is, a curse from ordinary person, don't take it lightly. And Melech cursed Sarah. And what did he say? He will be a cover for your eyes. Basically, he meant to say that he'll cover for you, but he uses lashon. The fact that Avimelech, this will prove a cover for your eyes that Avimelech didn't actually violate Sarah. So it says that he will be like a ksusinayim, a cover for the eyes. So that was like a curse. In his kain bezara, this came true by his seed. It says, so his eyes dimmed. So that was the ksusinayim that he spoke to him over there. Over here we have a whole bunch of statements of Elazar and Chanina. They're not joined by any logic. It's just they're all by the statement of Elazar and Chanina. We have too many statements over here, so we're gonna leave it over here, and we're gonna continue. Let's just do something about today's parsha. So let's do something about today's parsha. So of course, this week we started the portion of Korbanos. We'll do the portion of the sacrifices, and the idea of a sacrifice is really, even though we're taking a physical animal and we're bringing it as a korban on the mizbeach, but the idea of it is to really become closer to Hashem. We talk about an outside animal, but the truth is we all have an animal within ourselves. Just like you took a physical animal and you brought it on the altar, on the mizbeach, a fire comes down from the heaven, consumes that korban. Similarly, we have a fire from the heaven within. We have a godly soul, and we have an animal soul. And we got to take that animal soul and we have to burn it on the mizbeach to consume it into holiness. There is a verse that says Rav Tvuos b'koyach shoir. The olden days when people used to plow, they didn't have any machines. So they used to use oxen to pull the plow. The verse says you're going to get a good crops if you use an ox to pull the plow. If you use other animals, you're not going to get such a, because they don't have so much strength. But an ox, you're going to get a lot of grain. An ox can gore. An ox can cause chaos, destruction. But when you harness the ox and you put him under the yoke and he goes and he plows the fields, then you're going to get a tremendous amount of benefits from that ox. In a similar way, we have natural instincts. We have animal instincts, which are very powerful, which push us very strongly. And the idea is to take and harness that pull, that drive, to turn it around and bring it to the Mizbeach and have and train that animal within you to go in the yoke of Hashem. And that's why we say, when we say, V'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, you should love God, it says, B'chol levavcha. It doesn't say, B'chol libecha, it says, levavcha. Rashi from the Gemara brings down that levavcha means to, also to get the Yetzer Hara involved, which means to use the strength of that force, the force that you have, to turn it around for the positive. It's like a lot of things in life. You have fire can either go out of control and destroy, or fire can give you heat, it can give you warmth, it can give you light, it can give you a lot of positive things. Here we see, unfortunately, in the war, people are using all the advances of technology for destruction, to destroy, to maim, to hurt, to kill, to bring destruction to the world. Instead of using technology and all to bring more peace, to bring light, to bring happiness, to bring goodness in the world, people are using it to destruction. They're using it as animals. They're using it for destructions. The idea is to take even the destructive animals and to turn it around into the positive. I mean, we're living now in very surprising and difficult times, because I don't think that anybody would have expected at this time, what we see happening in front of our eyes, because we thought this was like 25 years ago, 40 years ago. And we see all the destruction again. And I'm really very, very proud of the Chabadniks who have sacrificed their lives all along to build communities all over the Ukraine, as well as in all countries there and in the Far East, all over the world. And now the world looks at them and sees that they're not leaving and they're staying along as long as there's people to help over there. A lot of people don't understand what it's, they know that the korban, the sacrifices that is expected, that is what the Rebbe taught him, that when you have to make sacrifices, you have to be ready to do that. So we hope that the suffering and the carnage will end very soon. And, Hashem will send the salvation, like in Purim. B'yom ha'mehem bizman hazeh. Bring us Mashiach and take us out of this galus and bring us to Eretz Yisrael and build us the Beis Hamikdash and may it remain. I thank you for joining me. Next week, Bezrat Hashem, same time, same station. We'll join you again. Everybody have a good week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Have a good one.